Hey guys, this is John, and I'm back with another multi-item sorter. And this is something of my own design. I've seen other things that are similar to this. I've seen Techman88 has a video that uses a bunch of index chests, chests with items in it, that he has all being funneled down into a single item sorter. Well, this is kind of the same concept. The only difference is that instead of, taking the items out of the chest, we're, literally just moving the chest around and then taking the items out. So it's a lot quicker, I would think. It's quicker and, you don't have to use nearly as much material. So to go over what this is a multi-item sorter that sorts by category, which means that you pick items that you want to sort and you put them in the chest, and that chest will line up with an output chest down here on the bottom. And, they don't have to be, they just go in there, in any particular order. So this is all like the stone and everything, right? And this is the chest for all the different wool types, which I don't know if I can get to that chest. Yeah, so see, I have all the different wool types that can be sorted into that chest, which we can go ahead and demonstrate. So I'll just grab, let's get, oh, what are you doing? I hate that erase the hotbar items button. It's the dumbest thing in the world, because I always end up pushing it, and then I'll lose everything in my inventory. So let's just get all that back. Yank, yank, yank. And one of those, and one of those. What else? A hopper. And I always use the cyan wool. Alright, so it's in the middle of sorting while I was working out my inventory. So it found the chest, the index item chest, and it's, starting to pass the items down. And we should. Okay. So we're still waiting on it to find the... Do I even have brown wool in that one? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the way the item sorter works is that it goes through each chest, and it will literally, like if we watch this one, it will literally pass down every item in that chest at hopper speed until it finds a matching item to the item that you put in. Okay, so this is based off of it's a sand chest. It's gonna be coming up. And okay, so see, it found the brown wool, and now the brown wool is starting to come down. So this is based off of a single item sorter right in there. And the output comes out to all these hoppers. This is like 32, 36 or whatever total hoppers in this entire system. And what it can do is the amount of items that you can fit in the chest. Let me see. It is, because that's 14 chests. So we can fit a maximum of 364 different items in this system that can be distributed in 14 different chests. Okay. And I'm not going to really give a tutorial on it unless somebody asks for it specifically, but this is a pretty amazing machine. Because I've built quite a few of them that worked on really different principles, but The main heart of the machine is just this single item sorter here. Now this is another item sorter, but I'll get into that in a second. So the way that it works, we have our input hopper here, and whenever we put an item in, the comparator there is going to kill the torch, right? And so what we're doing is locking the filter hopper. So the filter hopper is locked, so it can't push any items out into this chest, right? As you see that it's pointed into the chest. So what happens is when you put an item in, it's going to unlock that, right? And that is going to cycle through these items until it finds an item that, you know, matches your input item. And what it does is, as soon as it finds that same item, this hopper is going to push one in, so they're going to stack. You know, you're going to have two of them. Well, when they stack, that's going to trigger the item sorter, which is not only going to open up and to let the items come down, but that's also going to power this repeater to relock the filter to keep the filter from, you know, pushing the item out into the other chest. Okay. And on top of that, we also have a comparator up here reading the chest. So that way, when this chest gets empty, this is going to lock the filter so it can't push anything else out. And it's going to activate the piston line at the top to cycle through and put a new chest here, you know, with different items. Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and give you a little demonstration. So like we have redstone, and I'll just put, you know, an end item, right? So whenever we put some redstone in, so it cycled through all the items, it pulled down the redstone and stopped, right? And as soon as it you know, pulled down the redstone, then our redstone was able to stack, and that activated the item sorter. And now our last redstone, you know, from the chest here is just sitting in the chest, you know, and it'll just sit there until we put another item into the input, right? And the reason I made it like that is because if I put more redstone in, then it's not going to activate the system, because we, you know, still have redstone there. So I would rather it sort than push the item out and, you know, go around the entire cycle again, right? And that's why we have this 4-tick repeater here, to make sure that we can stack if the item is in there before we, you know, unlock the hopper. So anyway, once the items fill up in here, so for instance, like we have obsidian there, so I'll just put, you know, whatever in here to simulate like we're looking for another item. Okay. So the comparator went off and it tripped the torch because our last item was pushed down into the hopper and the chest is empty. So that would activate the piston system, right? So one of the things about this system is that when you rotate the chest, because the way that I have it made, so we would literally just take this chest and pick it up and move it to the left and put a new chest here, you know, and push that empty chest down here, right? But one of the issues with that system is that you have to develop a way that we can take the last, you know, useful item out of the hopper. So the way that I did that was by using a filler, which here is a piece of paper, right? So the piece of paper, because we're still looking for an item, the piece of paper is going to push out the obsidian, and that's going to be stuck there. But there's also, you know, something else we have to do, which is why we have this item sorter here, you know, because there's two of them put next to each other. So the paper, if we leave it in the hopper, whenever we get a new chest up here, right? So let me go ahead and pull all these out. Okay, so let's just say that the empty chest moved down there. So now we're going to have a new chest here with more items, right? So it's going to cycle through those items, and it's going to push the paper into this chest. Okay, so you can see we got the comparator in there. So the paper got pulled down, and the reason why, if we didn't have this item sorter, then, so I'll just go ahead and pull that. Well, it's going to get pulled down anyway. Yeah. But the reason why we have this item sorter is because the filler item that I'm using, the paper, if I left it in there, if I left it in the chest, then it would take up the first spot right here, right? And then every item that gets put into this chest after that is going to take up every other spot, you know? And eventually what that means is that the paper is going to be before every other item, right? And whenever the chest moves, you're always going to have like one of your useful items stuck in the hopper and going into a different chest. So you would not be able to categorize anything because the items would always be, leaving this chest and going into a different chest and all that. So what we do is we pull the paper out whenever, the hopper unlocks and it pushes one in here. So then all of our items, all of our new items will stack up here and, whatever. And then after the piston cycle operates again and our chest goes right here, then that's what this observer is for. Of course it would do that. You don't normally get 4, but... So whenever the observer detects the piston line in front of it moving... I swear I can't just do a little demonstration without it bugging out. Okay, so imagine that there's a chest moving, right? So the chest is going to move, the piston's going to fire to rotate the rest of the line, and the observer is going to push a piece of paper up into this chest. So if we had a bunch of items here, then the piece of paper would fall in, behind the last item, right? So that's why with every chest you can only put 26 items in the piece of paper. Okay? So that's the heart of the system. Outside of that, I have a few other things that I had to create for this, but you can see, like, we come out of the hopper line here to go into the output. So we just have a line of hoppers that are, everything is locked except for, whichever one that it's lined up with. Because the way that this works is anytime this piston line activates, that's going to send a pulse down here to activate this little, shifter that I made for the chest. So that's going to ensure that only one chest is unlocked at one time, and that it's always going to, that chest is always going to match up with whatever chest you originally, had it programmed with. And this is a little circuit that I had to make for it, which I can show you how that works. Whenever I was first trying to build these, I was using repeater locks to lock the hoppers, and you realize you can only make that so big before you can't have a good signal strength here. And you can make that a different way. It would just mean that like the chests wouldn't be lined up correctly. Like this way they're all lined up in a direction, so you can count up there and you can see what they are. But anyway, so this would be quickly, like, what do you call it? Like, too small of a system. You can only do 15 signal strength here, so you could only make this thing so big. Plus, you're having to use twice the space for the hoppers because you have to keep them spaced apart. So anyway, I came up with this little circuit here. This is something that I figured out how to do kind of on my own because you don't really see a lot of stuff like this. So this is based off of a memory circuit, which is these two comparators with blocks and the redstone, which is whatever signal strength you put in, they're going to hold it and lock it, right? So this can take a 1-tick input And what it does is we have power coming through this repeater coming to the input here, and because that's a 14 chest style, so I have a signal strength of 15 here minus 2 here to give me a signal strength of 13 as being my max power level. So this is like the power input comparator here, right? So once we have any type of a signal, okay, so as soon as power comes in, so this repeater is going to get powered and it's going to cut off the power input, right? So no other power can come in as long as this repeater is active, okay? And whenever this repeater gets power, that's going to be a signal level of 15, and we're subtracting 14 from that, so we're going to have an output of 1 here. So all we're doing is subtracting 1 from this signal level to give us a varying signal here, okay? And the way that the selector works, so that you can select, like just one hopper out of a whole line. You take your signal level, so like right now this is what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's power level of 5 there, right? So you just come out with another comparator line to bring that power level of 5, and we're going to subtract 5 from the number 13 over here, okay? Because my input power level is 13, right? Because I have 14 hoppers, in a line, but I can't use the signal level of 14 because, if I use power level of 14, then everything's going to be locked, right? We always want one that's going to be unlocked. So we have 13 plus a dead one. So anyway, use power level 13 on the input, and we match that with power level 13 back here. So then we could say what our number was, 5 minus 13 is what, 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that's what I get for not doing the math and just taking a wild guess. But anyway, so we're going to have a power level of 8 coming out of this comparator right here, right? So that's going to keep everything on this side locked, okay? And the way the circuit is made is that whenever it comes down, like because of the repeater there, whenever it comes down all the way to the lowest level, which is going to be 0, so it's going to, the repeater is now going to be turned off. So now we can go ahead and put our full power back in, and that'll give us the signal strength, okay? So using that, you can, make it to where it rotates and goes all the way to the bottom, and then repeats and goes all the way back to the top, so it can cycle in one direction. And aside from 14, you can also use that for 16 by just using the power level of 15 coming in, so we have 15 there and 15 there, and we have the 15 from the torch here. So you can actually have, from a signal strength of 15, you can actually have 16 different locks, because there's always going to be a single dead spot. So anyway, that is part of the locking system down here. And some of the other things that I had to devise because of this, because this is such a new kind of thing. So the little, I'm just using the power level coming off of the little paper item sorter, and that's powering the dropper elevator. But one thing I had to do at the top here, see, we have an observer here. This is serving 2 different functions. So one, anytime the chest moves, it's going to power the piston here to push the chest up, to complete the cycle. But it's also going to activate this top dropper to shoot the paper into the top chest, you know. Because when a chest is down here, when it leaves this area, you know, we pulled the paper out, so there's no paper. So after it comes back in place, we inject a paper. And the reason why I'm using the observer is because the items pass by at random times, you know. So whenever they pass by something that is, you know, like a dead spot, like one of these, then it's going to be, you know, it's going to be pretty quick. See? And if we just used a normal like dropper tower here, then that's not going to fire fast enough to actually be able to shoot the paper into the chest. Because on a few other designs I had it where the, you know, paper was just like popping out and flying out everywhere. You know, it wasn't making it into the chest. So aside from that, the little hopper timer, or the little piston timer up here, is something that I developed for this, to where it, you know, deactivates the sticky piston, pulls the chest up, and then fires the whole line. And I did that a while ago, and I realized that, you know, that even though, because technically we have a total of 15 chests here, you know, but one of the chests is always going to be considered like an addition to that chest, right? So that chest with half of the redstone stuff and this chest with half of the redstone stuff, they're just considered like one chest, right? So technically, you know, we're only, even though literally we have 15 chests, technically we're only using 14, right? And outside of that, we have to have some kind of a safety, so that whenever it does find an item and it starts to sort, we don't want it to, like right there, I just put one item in. So let's put in a dirt, and then directly after that we're going to put in a full stack of sand, right? Because we're going to have to make sure that the single dirt is going to find its chest and sort before the full stack of sand, right? So we have to have certain safety mechanisms for that. Okay, so it found the dirt, and now it's going to start doing the sand. And I actually broke my light off. I had a light up there at the top to tell me when it was sorting. So all of these comparators here at the top with the repeaters, that plus this little comparator memory circuit here, that's all part of the safety mechanism. So what happens is when the item sorter detects that it has an item, it's going to power the repeater here, which is going to lock the hopper, but it's also going to power this little memory circuit. And I tried to come up with a few different things, but what it does is it powers this with a level of 1, and this will keep and maintain that power level of 1 indefinitely, right? And that is going to both keep the filter, well, it goes through this this repeater here to keep the filter locked, but we also have a second repeater here, and that is because the redstone is kind of buggy, because I noticed what was happening is normally when a hopper pulls down with an item sorter, you get a 4-tick pulse, which is long enough to power these two comparators, you know. But I noticed that sometimes it would only send a 1-tick pulse, which would travel through these comparators, and it'll just be, you know, like flashing. And so what we did was we added a second repeater here to make sure that the filter stays locked, because what was happening was the filter would blink, 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 you know, and allow it to pull down more items. So this is to ensure that we have, you know, like when the repeater first locks it, that's at tick 1, and then here at that's tick 1, and then at tick 2 we have another signal. So we're giving it like a two-tick length of pulse here. And the point of that is so that we can pull down more items before it starts like acting crazy, But anyway, so whenever it sorts for an item, like let's just put the sand back in there so we can see what it does back there. So it's gonna sort for an item and lock the comparators here. And we'll see that as the items pass down the line, that they're going to power the comparators, which is powering this little comparator pulse extender. And that comes up to this falling edge detector that I made, which has to have a 2-tick output, 2-tick pulse output. So you see the lines dying, and then when the line dies, this will briefly turn off for 2 ticks, which will let this torch kill the comparator lock up here, you know. So when that torch powers, then whatever signal this had is gonna get turned off. So that's part of the safeties. Anyway, outside of that, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's pretty fast considering it can sort through so many different items. You know, it's not as fast as like, just say like an impulse sorter or whatever. But one of the things about this system is that already I can sort through, you know, I don't know what I have in there, but I have at least like 30 or 40 items. So already I have more items than the amount of hoppers that I'm using if I were to make an impulse sorter, right? Because if that was like a 14 chest system, then that would be just 14 different items. This is 14 chests, 300 and something items, you know? And I mean, even once it gets filled up, like if you were to fill these and it would take a little longer to go through, that would still probably be faster than any other type of multi-item sorter that was made to handle, you know, 300 and something different items in 14 different chests, you know. So even though it does kind of seem like it might not be that fast, I mean, it is still pretty fast, you know. And one of the things, I don't know if I mentioned this, but one of the things that makes it fast is that while it's searching, like I put mossy cobble in there, while it's searching for mossy cobble, if I have another item in there, like something in the redstone, you know, it doesn't matter if the mossy cobble is the first item in the hopper. It doesn't matter what, you know, what order these are arranged. If it hits that redstone and I have a redstone component in here waiting to be sorted, then it'll stop and it'll pull those out first, you know. And then the next chest, when it goes to the cobble chest and it sees the mossy cobble, then it'll push that in. So it's not like, you know, because I have to put, because like with a normal sorter, if I put mossy cobble, then it's going to have to go through the entire sorter and then go to the mossy cobble, right? And then the redstone has to go through and go to the redstone. This is just like whatever is the first in the line gets to go, and, you know, and it just goes after that. So anyway, I think it's pretty cool. It's a really big, complicated machine, and it took a lot of refinement from what I was doing before. On some of these older versions, I would actually use a clock to lock and unlock the hoppers. So even though these worked, they certainly were not hopper speed, and, you know, they took a lot longer to actually find the item. And outside of this, even though this is like a 14 or a 16 chest index, I only had, you know, I did multiples for the output. So I only did like, you know, 8 chests or 7 chests, to where, you know, 2 of the index chests would both line up with 1 output chest, you know. So you'd have to kind of, you know, like put stuff together if you wanted to. I think on one of these I had, you know, like both dirt and redstone going into the same chest, you know, and that's probably not something I would like in the game. But with this, you know, you have the full chest depending on how many chests you have out there. And another part of this system is that you can increase this by as many, literally as many chests as you want. You know, you just come up, stack more up and more up, and you'd have to kind of re-engineer the rest of it. But I mean, not by much, but the tough part would be extending the signal strength to be able to lock and unlock more hoppers. But the way that you could do that is with a decade counter. So you could use this to where once you get to 0 or something like that, then it would trigger another one of these counters that would go to number 1, right? Or something like that. Yeah, actually you could, yeah. Because like with this, if I had 14 and then I wanted to double that or whatever, then I could make like 2 different sections to where, half of the chests line up with one section and the other half line up with the other section. Something like that. Um, but anyway, I think you could really do a lot with a system like this, and I think for what it does, I think it's pretty quick. It's easy to expand, at least to get up to 16 chests, and it seems to be pretty stable. Um, Another thing I noticed, whenever you log in and out, you're probably going to have a second piece of paper in the chest here. And the reason why is because observers will flash whenever you open the game. And what I was doing before was powering the repeater locks and stuff at the bottom, just coming off the observer power here. But you can't do that because every time you relog into the game, it's going to shift one, so your items would always be out of order. And like I said, like the observer is probably going to shoot a second piece of paper up here, but that doesn't matter because the next time this gets cycled around, all the paper is going to get pulled out, and then we'll just have, one more piece of paper, put up into the next empty chest. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think it's really cool. It was a lot of engineering, especially for the entire sorter part. I really had to, on my old ones, they were just kind of like thrown together. This one I really had to try to get all the timings correct because everything is hopper speed. So if anybody wants a tutorial or any more information on this, you can just let me know and I would be glad to make a video. But I mean, it would probably be, like an hour long. So anyway, okay, that's all.